Hello, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and I'm going to show you DeliverPoint for SharePoint Online. DeliverPoint is a SharePoint add-in that allows users to be able to report on permissions and also manage permissions in bulk as a site collection administrator or also SharePoint administrator. So first of all, I'm going to demonstrate an issue to you, and that is I'm going to navigate to the site permissions view within inside this SharePoint Modern site, and you'll be able to see here that I've got some site owners who have full control, as well as site members. And those site members, as we can see, is accounts payable, which happens to be an Active Directory security group. I've also got Brett Lonsdale, which is an external account. I've also got Carl, Lightning Tools members, and also Sandy Ucia, who can access this team site. So all is good. That looks like they're the only people that can see the site. And we can also go down to the advanced permission settings as well, to be able to check on the permissions using the old classic view. So you'll notice here, if I go into the members group, once again I get to see which groups or which individuals have permissions to this particular team site. And as I go to the visitors or the owners, that's everything I see. So what's the issue? Well, what we'll see if we go into the DeliverPoint tool, so here we can navigate into the DeliverPoint Add-In Pro, you'll notice that I can go through and navigate to all of the different sites within inside this site collection. But what I'm going to do first of all is just concentrate on this top level site that we were looking at. And I'm going to click onto the Discover User Permissions on that site. And this DeliverPoint actually gives us a full report of everybody who's been permissioned on this particular team site. And you'll see that it goes beyond what Microsoft suggested my users have permissions to. So you'll notice here we've got the So you'll also notice that on here I've got the users that weren't showing up inside those reports, as we have demo user 1, demo user 2, demo user 4, and they're even duplicated as well. So we can see that they have edit permissions, and I can also see how they have edit permissions as well. So if I extend the Lightning Tools members SharePoint group, you'll see here that that's the account payable AD group that we saw was nested inside the Lightning Tools members, and I can see that demo user 1 is a member of that AD group, and therefore demo user 1 has edit permissions. And likewise with demo user 2 and demo user 4. And if we have a look at these two accounts here as well, I can see that they're also inside that members group, but weren't showing up inside the actual permissions report. So once again, we can go through and have a look at that. If I navigate back to that Lightning Tools team site, and click onto the site permissions, and then go back again to the advanced permissions. As we navigate into that members group, there's no mention of demo user 1 or demo user 2 in here, and by clicking onto accounts payable, I can't actually see those accounts either. So this is the issue that DeliverPoint resolves, and what we can do is go into DeliverPoint and not just look at that one particular team site, but I can also see the subsites within inside the site collection as well. So you can see here I've got a human resources team site which is inheriting permissions, and I know that's inheriting permissions based upon the icon that is rendered. So anything with a dimmed icon is inheriting the permissions, and anything with a full color icon, like we can see with operations, that has unique permissions. And as we see under sales, direct sales has inherited permissions and partners has unique. So the sort of thing that we can do with this is actually go through and select some of these sites, and by selecting them I can go through and click on to compare permissions, and that will tell me if these permissions differ at all from site to site. So actually we can see that in some cases they do, and it'll actually tell me what those differences are as well, so that I can either fix that, or I could also maybe go through and change one of the sites to re-inherit permissions. And that is something that I can do easily just by selecting the site within inside the tree view and setting it to either inherit or break permissions. So from this view as well, we can also go through and execute the Discover User Permissions report on more than one object. So if we were interested in a particular account, I could go through and filter on that account. So let's say we wanted to focus in on demo user 1. I could select demo user 1 from the view, and now I can see what permissions demo user 1 has to each of those sites that I selected. We can also filter by permission level as well. So if I wanted to know who has full control to these 3 selected sites, in the drop down I can choose the full control, hit save, and that will render that for me. And these permission drop downs will also include any permission level, including custom permission levels that may have been defined in any of these sites that I selected. The other thing that we can do here is check for any external users. So by clicking onto external users, I can actually see that there is an external user, and that's my Lightning Tools account. So as well as running the discover user permissions within inside the tree view, I can also execute that same report contextually from within inside the site as well. So notice if we go into the document library here, trying to use SharePoint natively to check permissions can be quite time consuming. So in order to actually see who's got permissions to this, I can go down to details, and from details I can go through and manage the access, and once again it's showing me which groups have access to this particular folder, but as I expand that, it's not really giving me any more detail unless I go into the advanced view, and from that advanced view we're stuck with the same problem as we had with inside the team site itself. So that's multiple clicks that we have to go through in order to be able to check who's got permissions to this particular folder. Whereas with DeliverPoint, I can just simply select that folder and then discover the list item permissions. And that will take me straight to that company stuff folder within inside DeliverPoint. And we can see exactly who's got permissions to that particular folder within inside of my environment. So that's something that a site collection administrator can do when they're checking on not just folders, but also list items and documents, as well as lists and libraries or sites. And again, that can be executed on multiple objects at the same time. We can see here within the tree view that it's not just the sites that can have inherited or broken permissions, but lists as well. So the lists will also show up as a different icon, and that allows me to go through and discover the user permissions on those lists. So another view that we have here is known as an account-centric view, and the account-centric view allows me to either select a user from the list of users, or also, so in here I can select demo user 1 and I can check the unique permissions for demo user 1. So that's not going to show me everything that demo user 1 may have been granted permissions to, but it shows me which groups, including Office 365 groups, SharePoint groups, and Active Directory security groups, demo user 1 is a member of. And we can also see which sites demo user 1 has been granted permissions to, what the permission level was, and how that permission was assigned. So in this case, it was through the operations members SharePoint group that that user was granted permissions. So with that in mind, we can also go through and manage the permissions as well. So if we have a user that's maybe leaving the organization and is going to be replaced by another account, then what we can do is simply transfer permissions between these users. So I can go through, for example, and transfer the permissions from demo user 1 and maybe go through and assign those to another user such as demo user 12 or demo user 11, and include any subsites or list items or anything like that that I want to include as well, and that will go through and process that permission transfer. So any permissions that demo user 1 did have through SharePoint groups or direct permissions will now have been transferred to demo user 12. We can delete the permissions as well, so we can use that for deleting permissions in bulk rather than transferring them, and I can also grant or copy permissions between accounts on any object within the tree view. The other option we have is to also check on dead accounts as well, and that's something we can run at the site collection level. So checking on the dead accounts will look for any accounts, and in this case there aren't any, but any accounts that could not be found inside the Active Directory but do have assigned permissions throughout SharePoint. So that may include users where they left the organization and instead of removing all of the permissions from SharePoint, the account was just simply disabled inside the Active Directory, which means that that user will still show up inside all of the permission reports, will still show up as a group member, and that becomes a challenge going forward. So DeliverPoint will allow you to clean up any dead accounts as well as users that are leaving the organization. Okay, I hope you found that as a useful tour of DeliverPoint. If you want to download a trial of DeliverPoint so you can test it inside your own environment, then just above this video on the product page, you'll be able to see the download button and you can download a 14-day trial. Or if you want to, we can also set you up a site inside our tenant and set up DeliverPoint for you, and that way you can test the features of the product. And in order to get that done, please email sales@lightningtools.com. Okay, many thanks for listening.